How many of us walk into love hoping to be saved from ourselves? We don't say it out loud. We don't even admit it fully to ourselves. But there's a quiet hope lurking beneath the surface, that someone will finally come and make everything okay, that the ache inside this unnamed ancient emptiness will dissolve in the warmth of being loved. And for a while it seems to work. The excitement of new love, the validation of being chosen, the sweet intoxication of connection, it all feels like a remedy. But then something unsettling begins to happen. The silence returns. The same questions, the same restlessness, the same feeling of being incomplete, despite the presence of someone who truly loves you. This moment can be deeply disorienting, because if even love, the thing we were told is the ultimate answer, doesn't fix it, then what will? That's the unspoken crisis many adults face. After chasing love, after building relationships, after trying to fill the emptiness with affection and intimacy, they find themselves staring back into the same internal void. And the question that rises is not romantic but existential. What's wrong with me? But maybe that's the wrong question. Philosophically, what we're confronting isn't brokenness. It's the human condition. The French thinker Blaise Pascal wrote that there is a God-shaped vacuum in the heart of man, a space so vast, no created thing can fill it. Not even love. Especially not the kind of love we romanticize in movies and novels. When we expect another person to heal our inner fractures, we're not entering a relationship. We're entering a transaction. I give you my love, and you give me meaning. But no human being, no matter how kind or devoted, can bear the weight of making someone else whole. So maybe the void you feel isn't a sign of failure. Maybe it's an invitation, not to be rescued, but to start asking deeper questions, the kind that open doors to real transformation. Tell me in the comments, have you ever felt alone even in the arms of someone who loved you? And if this reflection touched something in you, consider subscribing. There's much more ahead. There's a subtle but devastating mistake many of us make, and we usually don't see it until something breaks. We hand over the weight of our existence to someone else. Quietly, almost unconsciously, we expect them to bring us meaning, to give our lives direction, to protect us from our own chaos. This isn't love, it's delegation. It starts innocently enough. You meet someone who brings joy, who sees you, who makes the world feel lighter. And somewhere along the way, you begin to think, as long as this person stays, I'll be okay. It feels romantic. It even sounds poetic. But beneath the surface, something dangerous is growing. Dependency disguised as devotion. When we make another person the axis of our identity, we stop being responsible for ourselves. We begin to relate to them not as a companion, but as a cure. And the moment they stop meeting that unspoken expectation, the moment they fail to erase our loneliness or give us constant emotional validation, resentment starts to build. You don't say it out loud, but deep down, you feel betrayed. Because you trusted them with your sense of purpose. This is what Viktor Frankl warned against. In Man's Search for Meaning, he wrote that true meaning can never be given from the outside. It must be discovered in suffering, through action, and for something greater than oneself. When we demand that love be the answer to our inner void, we poison the very thing we're trying to protect. We turn the relationship into a pressure cooker. We stop seeing the other as a person and start treating them as a solution. And no one, no matter how much they love you, can survive being someone else's salvation. Love suffocates under the weight of unrealistic expectations. It's not meant to complete you. It's meant to accompany you as you confront your own soul. So ask yourself, have you been asking someone to carry a burden that is actually yours? Take a moment. Be honest. There's a kind of silence that no voice can break. A kind of solitude that lingers even when you're held tightly by someone who loves you. It's not depression. It's not abandonment. It's not even about feeling unloved. It's something deeper. A solitude that sits at the core of human experience. The existential loneliness of simply being. French philosopher Blaise Pascal once said that all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. That room, metaphorically, is the inner chamber of the soul, a place no other person can enter for you. And that is where the ache resides. This is the kind of loneliness that persists even in fulfilling relationships. The partner may be good, the connection sincere, the affection real, and still you find yourself face to face with an emptiness that refuses to leave, because it's not about them. It never was. There are parts of us so private, so intimate, that they remain untouched by even the deepest love. Questions like, why am I here? What am I supposed to do with this one life? What happens after all this ends? These cannot be answered by another. They are not shared burdens. They are the weight of existence itself. And yet most of us spend years trying to avoid this encounter. We chase distractions, relationships, achievements, anything to keep us from entering that solitary room. But the paradox is cruel. The more we run from that loneliness, the more it shapes us from the shadows. To live maturely is to stop running, to stop expecting someone else to rescue us from the discomfort of our own consciousness. Because no matter how close someone stands beside you, the walk inward is yours alone. This is not a punishment. It's a calling to take responsibility for your own soul, to realize that love, while beautiful, is not a substitute for self-confrontation, and that the most honest relationships begin when we stop asking others to distract us from ourselves and start walking into that silence with courage. In a world drowning in noise, silence feels threatening. We fill our days with voices, screens, tasks, distractions, anything to avoid being left alone with ourselves. But without realizing it, this constant noise becomes a way of escaping the one voice we most need to hear, our own. If you want to confront the kind of loneliness that lingers even in love, you need to do something most people are terrified of: be alone on purpose. Not just alone physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. No podcasts, no background music, no to-do lists, just you, present, awake, vulnerable. This is not meditation. It's not a productivity hack. It's an honest encounter with what your soul has been trying to say underneath the noise. And that voice often begins with discomfort. Here's a practical invitation. Once a week, set aside 1 hour, one sacred hour of solitude. Bring only a notebook and a single question. What am I trying to avoid feeling? Write freely. Don't judge your thoughts. Don't try to fix anything. Just listen. Beneath the surface-level anxiety and scattered thoughts, something deeper begins to speak. Often, it's a fear, a wound, a longing. Sometimes it's the quiet cry of a soul that's been neglected, even by you. This practice is a mirror. It reveals the expectations you silently place on others, the needs you project onto love, the emptiness you hope someone else will fill, not because they should, but because you've forgotten how to sit with your own pain. The goal here is not to solve the loneliness. It's to understand it, to become familiar with the terrain of your own heart, so that you no longer arrive in relationships as a stranger to yourself. Because the more fluent you become in your own silence, the less you'll fear the solitude that relationships can't reach. This hour of silence is not a retreat, it's a return to the part of you that can't be outsourced, romanticized, or healed by someone else. And perhaps in that quiet, you'll discover that what felt like emptiness was actually the beginning of presence. There comes a point when even the brightest parts of life begin to taste like ash. Love, work, pleasure, all still present yet strangely dulled. You smile because you should. You go through the motions. But inside there's a sense of disconnection. Not from others, from meaning itself. Viktor Frankl, the Austrian neurologist and Holocaust survivor, called this existential frustration. It's what happens when life feels stripped of significance, even when nothing is technically wrong. You're not broken. You're not ungrateful. You're just unanchored. Frankl's answer to this wasn't more pleasure or more affection. It wasn't to dive deeper into relationships or chase emotional highs. It was startlingly simple and profoundly difficult. Forget yourself in service of something greater. This doesn't mean abandoning your needs. It means recognizing that the deepest human fulfillment doesn't come from what we receive, but from what we give ourselves to. not passively, but actively, freely, and consciously. He wrote, "The more one forgets himself by giving himself to a cause to serve or another person to love, the more human he is." Notice the distinction: not using the other to fill your void, but loving them as an act of giving, from a place of inner strength. This is where many people stumble. They love to be completed, to be rescued. But Frankl invites us to love as a form of meaning-making, not a solution to loneliness. To choose a purpose that calls us beyond our pain, and to love others not as crutches, but as co-pilots on a shared mission. So when life feels tasteless, when love no longer intoxicates and the days blur together, don't rush to escape it. Ask, what am I living for that is larger than me? If the answer isn't clear, don't panic. Let that question sit with you. Let it disturb your comfort. That disturbance is the birthplace of clarity. Because the moment you align with something truly worth suffering for, the flavor of life returns. Not in bursts of pleasure, but in the quiet fire of purpose rediscovered. Love is powerful, but it is not magical. And yet, many of us treat it as if it is. We grow up watching stories where love saves the day, heals all wounds, brings clarity, peace, wholeness. We enter adulthood with an unspoken belief: if I can just find the right person, everything else will fall into place. But here's the truth that real life eventually forces us to confront. Love can't do your inner work for you. When we over-romanticize love, we place it on a pedestal too high for any real human relationship to reach. We turn it into a myth, a kind of emotional utopia, where we'll finally be free from our insecurities, fears, and shadows. And when love inevitably fails to meet that impossible standard, we don't just feel disappointment, we feel betrayal. But the betrayal isn't from the other person, it's from our own expectations. This kind of over-romanticization leads to one of two outcomes. Either we keep chasing new relationships, hoping the next one will finally be the one that fills us, or we stay in a relationship, quietly resenting our partner for not saving us from ourselves. In both cases, love is no longer love. It becomes performance, it becomes demand, it becomes pressure. Philosophically, love only has room to breathe between two whole people. Not perfect, but responsible for themselves. People who have faced their loneliness, confronted their wounds, and chosen to love not from need, but from freedom. This doesn't mean you need to be completely healed before loving. It means you don't enter love expecting it to complete what only your own inner journey can. In Anna Karenina, Tolstoy gives us a tragic portrait of a woman who places her salvation in romantic love. And as that love fades under the weight of reality, she's left with despair, because she had no self apart from the romance. Don't let that be your story. Real love is a sacred gift, but it's not your savior. The moment you stop asking it to carry what only your soul can bear, you give it space to become what it truly is. A quiet miracle, not a cure. You scroll through your feed and there they are, radiant couples laughing at sunset, handwritten love notes, anniversary dinners glowing under candlelight. It's easy to think, why doesn't my relationship feel like that? Or worse, what's wrong with me that I still feel lonely? This is one of the most subtle and corrosive poisons of our time: emotional comparison. We don't compare facts. We compare appearances, highlight reels, carefully edited moments designed not just to be shared but to be envied. And in doing so, we fall into the trap of measuring our insides against someone else's outsides. The danger isn't just that it makes us feel bad. The deeper threat is that it distorts our expectations of reality. We begin to believe that emotional fulfillment should look like a constant state of bliss, that if we're doing life or love right, we shouldn't feel lonely, uncertain, or restless. But that's not love. That's performance. The truth is, even the most loving relationships pass through deserts, periods of dryness, silence, or even internal disconnection, not because something is wrong, but because we are human. To feel alone at times, even when loved, is not a malfunction. It's a reflection of our inner complexity. Tolstoy once wrote, "All happy families are alike. Each unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. But maybe the real insight is this. The parts of ourselves that feel alone are not necessarily broken. They are simply real. They are the quiet corners of the soul that no Instagram story can capture. Social media rarely shows the nights of doubt, the moments of existential emptiness, the silent breakfasts after an argument. It doesn't show the internal battles we fight to love well, or the loneliness that creeps in even as we hold hands. And so if you feel disconnected or distant, it doesn't mean you've failed. It means you're awake. The most dangerous lie of emotional comparison is not that others are happy. It's that you shouldn't feel what you feel, that your experience is invalid just because it's invisible. But the truth is, what you're feeling is more universal than you think. You're not off course. You're human, and you're not alone in this kind of loneliness. There's a kind of hunger that love can't satisfy, the hunger for self-respect. And yet, when the fear of being alone grows too loud, we often trade that dignity for temporary comfort. We tell ourselves, at least someone is here. We accept relationships that feel hollow, one-sided, or even harmful, just to escape the silence of solitude. But here's the hard truth. Accepting less than your soul needs is not love. It's self-abandonment. This fear is deeply human. To be alone is to face ourselves without distraction, to hear every echo of our thoughts, to confront the ache we've spent years trying to outrun. And so, when someone offers even the illusion of connection, a text, a touch, a presence, we sometimes cling, even when that bond costs us our peace. But settling comes at a price. Every time you say yes to something that dishonors your value, you teach yourself that loneliness is worse than being half-loved. That quiet is more terrifying than compromise, that your needs are negotiable, but someone else's company is sacred. This is the lie that traps many people in emotional poverty. Philosophically, it's a refusal to accept the tension of being unfinished. We want relief now, even if it means borrowing love we haven't earned or sustaining a bond that stifles our growth. But real growth only happens when we're willing to suffer with dignity, to choose solitude over simulation. St. John of the Cross wrote about the dark night of the soul, a period where all consolations are stripped away, not as punishment, but as purification. Sometimes being alone is not a curse. It's an initiation, a slow, painful reclaiming of your own soul from the places you've scattered it. So ask yourself with brutal honesty, am I in this relationship because it's real, or because I'm afraid? And if the answer frightens you, don't look away. That fear is the doorway. Dignity begins the moment you stop using love to escape loneliness and start choosing presence, even when it's quiet, even when it hurts. Because some silences are not empty, they're sacred. Thou hast made us for thyself, O Lord, and our heart is restless until it rests in thee. With this single line, St. Augustine captures the deepest truth behind so much of our aching. We think we're craving romance. We think the pain is about not being seen, not being held, not being chosen. But often what we're really feeling is something more profound, a spiritual homesickness, a restlessness not for another person, but for transcendence. And yet, in our modern world, we're trained to interpret this hunger as emotional lack. We chase relationships, attention, affection, hoping that the ache will finally subside. But it doesn't, because no amount of human love can quiet a longing that was never meant to be filled by another human. This is not a rejection of love, and it's a recalibration of it. When we confuse the longing for God, for meaning, for eternity, with romantic desire, we place an impossible burden on our partners. We ask them not just to love us, but to give us peace. Not just to be present, but to give us purpose. It's a recipe for disappointment, and often for despair. Augustine wasn't speaking in abstraction. His own life was marked by years of restlessness. He sought fulfillment in pleasure, success, even in brilliant philosophy. But it was only when he turned inward and upward, when he confronted the deepest chambers of his soul, that he understood. The human heart is not designed to be satisfied by anything less than the infinite. What we often call neediness may actually be spiritual thirst. What feels like emotional emptiness may be a misdiagnosed yearning for the eternal. And that changes everything. Because now, instead of blaming love for not being enough, we can finally see it for what it is. A mirror, not a source. A beautiful echo of something beyond. This shift doesn't make the ache go away, but it gives it context. It transforms longing from a problem into a prayer. So when you feel that restlessness, ask yourself, is this a hunger for love or a hunger for meaning? And what would it change in your relationships if you stopped asking others to calm a storm that only your Creator can still? Imagine a cave, dark, silent, and deep. No one can see inside. No one can follow you there. This is the place where all pretense dies, where you meet yourself without filters, without noise, without applause. It is terrifying, and it is necessary. Because this cave is where real transformation begins. We spend most of our lives avoiding it. We fill our time with relationships, routines, distractions, anything to keep from facing the depth of our own interior. But at some point, life pushes us inward. A loss, a breakup, a silence in the middle of the night that won't let you sleep. And suddenly, there it is, the entrance. This is what philosophers and mystics have spoken of for centuries. The desert, the abyss, the dark night. Not as punishment, but as passage. No one can enter this cave with you, not because they don't love you, but because the work to be done there is utterly personal. It's where you confront the questions that have no easy answers. Who am I, really? What am I living for? What do I fear when there's nothing left to hide behind? Love can wait at the entrance. It can pray for you, cheer for you, hold your hand until the threshold, but it cannot cross. That step, the step into yourself, must be taken alone, and yet this is not loneliness. It's solitude with purpose. It's the sacred space where you learn to tell the difference between your needs and your desires, where you stop asking others to fix you and begin to discover what it means to be whole in your brokenness. The cave doesn't offer instant answers, but it offers something better: clarity, integrity, and the quiet strength that comes from knowing who you are when no one is watching. So if you find yourself standing at the edge, afraid to enter, take heart. You are not being abandoned. You are being invited. And when you return, something will be different. You will carry a silence that doesn't ache anymore, a love that no longer begs to be filled, and a presence that makes you trustworthy, not because you've never been lonely, but because you've learned how to be alone. If this journey into the cave spoke to something deep in you, leave a comment below and share what you saw in the silence. And if this kind of reflection nourishes you, subscribe. We're just getting started.